All right, the parable of the donut. Okay, now a donut's no easy task. There's no doubt about it. There's many ways to attack this. One, you could do a planar mapping at the top. Okay, and that would cause this to happen. And then you would just have two shells. You could do this shell and cut them. I can highlight one shell by just going into UV, highlight one single UV, and go to shell. W on the keyboard and move that out of the way. Therefore, I got two shells. I could do it that way. I could take it a little bit further and say, well, shell 1 and shell 2, if I just highlight an edge here and highlight an edge here, control right click to edge loop, or you can go in here and double click, and that's the same thing. I can cut that. Well, here's the fun thing. If I go in here to grab all the UVs here, I can do an unfold, but it's not going to unfold it this way. I'm thinking about unwrapping the donut all the way and getting a nice tube here. And to be honest with you, there's no real way to do that. Okay? When you're getting into shapes like this, you have to start thinking ahead of time. And let me kind of show you what ahead of time means. Let me grab a box. Let's give it some height. Let's take the face at the top and extrude it. Face at the bottom, extrude it. We're going to go mesh smooth. And then I'm just going to stretch it out. Okay. I'll go into the top view and just destroy all the faces. So that way I have this open cylinder. And I can go in here and say, well, if I just go in here and say create cylindrical mapping, that's mapped out. And here's what that looks like with the material. Okay. If I just fix the UVs a little bit, like let's squish these in. I'm starting to get a better square. Okay. That. And then if I went into object mode and go into animations to create nonlinear bend, and the curvature type in pi, 3.145, I believe. There we go. Okay, of course, I would have to take and fix the seam here. There is a small seam. So back in polygon mode, merge edge tool. And you can see the seam right here. I'm incredibly lazy, so I'm just going to go into 4 on the keyboard so I can keep continuing to sew this edge without moving that one part. There we go. I love this shape because it's a conundrum. Technically, there's very little seams in this part. Think about the structure of this. There is one seam in this part, and that's the seam I just kind of stitched together a little bit. So this is the only seam in the whole part. It's very cool if you think about it. If I want to fatten it up, all I would have to do there is go into here to transform component, and I can just use the blue arrow to fatten it up if I wanted to. Okay. Again, though, the point of the story here is I had to think ahead on that. You know, I had to stop and said, okay, you know, I'm going to have this shape inside my scene. It's going to be a donut. It's better to do the UVs before it was bent than it is to have it bent and do the UVs. And that's where you're getting into thinking ahead. And oftentimes in the heat of battle when you're modeling, you don't. You know, you're like, I'm just going to model. And then you're just like, wait, I should have stopped a long time ago and done the UVs on that. Now it's going to be really hard, especially if you had, let's say, a chandelier with all kinds of goofy tubes that go all the way around, and you had to do a texture for the tubes. Well, there you go. You know, it would have been smarter to do the UVs on the tubes first, then bend them, and then make your chandelier. All right. So let's look at the next shape, this little barbell thing, in the next video.